Hello and welcome back to Planet Nibiru. Today, we're going to take a look at some very interesting stories from around the world that are beginning to paint a pretty mysterious picture of what's going on with the disappearances of large bodies of water globally. As many of you know, October is the time for the annual Draconids meteor shower, so be sure to catch them when you get a chance. If you can't view them in your area of the sky, check out slew.com, where you can view this and all kind of other space events live and free. So, let's start at the very beginning of this phenomenon and see if we can understand what's really going on here. Recently, we covered a story about the water being sucked out of the bay in the Bahamas. All the water in the bay went missing. The same thing happened in Tampa, Florida a couple of days later. These events were blamed on Hurricane Irma. Though the phenomenon was known, it was rarely witnessed. Career weathermen like Al Roker of Good Morning America remarked that this was the first time that they had actually seen this phenomenon. However, a month before Hurricane Irma, there were reports and videos coming out of Brazil and Uruguay showing the exact same phenomenon, but this time there was no storm to cause it. When asked, local weather scientists in Brazil said, "Waters usually recede this way ahead of a tsunami, so you might understand if you saw people running for their lives when they observed this phenomenon. When there are no signs of large quakes or tsunamis, the common belief among weather experts is that offshore storms and wind direction may also trigger a similar effect. For example, Punta del Este in Uruguay, when there are storms with a south wind, the waters rise and hit the seawall. In contrast, when the storms are accompanied by a northerly wind, the water recedes, but never to these levels. Such a giant and widespread ocean receding effect is unprecedented." Now, these two occur 1 month before the storms in the Caribbean and the US. But if we look back even further, the rabbit hole deepens. In 2016, there were at least 4 large lakes that have completely disappeared overnight with no explanation. A search on Google shows that we have been experiencing this phenomenon for a lot longer than just this summer. In just a few minutes, I found many instances of large bodies of water vanishing overnight, dating back to 2013. All over the world, lakes, rivers, and now oceans are vanishing with no reason. In the case of the freshwater disappearances, the water has remained missing. For obvious reasons, the salt water seems to fill back in after about a day or so passes. On August 11, 2017, the ocean water disappeared along the beaches in Punta del Este, Uruguay. Then 1 day later, on August 12, 2017, the same weird phenomenon occurred along the beaches in Porto Alegre and Tremonde, as well as Florianopolis in Brazil. At the same time, massive waves were reported in Africa, yet there was no tsunami and no earthquakes reported at that time. Fast forward 1 month later to September 9th, and watch the waters recede from the area surrounding Long Island in the Bahamas. This instance was the one that most of us were exposed to. We watched in awe as the waters receded from the area, leaving an entire bay dry. You can see dry land all the way out to a distant island that sits in the bay. The very next day, on September 10th, we have the same thing happening again in the Florida Keys, and up in Tampa, Florida. The waters drained completely out of the bay. Hundreds of thousands of gallons vanished. During the month of September, I began receiving pictures, videos, and emails regarding the anomaly cited during the eclipse that many of us now believe is Nibiru. There were many reports from all over North America stating that folks had seen either 2 suns or they had seen a planet near the sun during the eclipse. Simultaneously, I started receiving information about more water disappearing around the world, this time in rivers, lakes, and other coastal regions. By mid-September, I began receiving pictures and video of the Mississippi River, showing it absolutely bone dry, the crossing of Highway 40 from Tennessee to Arkansas. These pictures and videos were taken by truckers who regularly cross the river, showing dusty trails where the massive river normally flows. These truckers are alarmed as they have been crossing this river for their entire lives and they have never before seen it dry. Towards the end of September, Mexico City is hit by a devastating earthquake. This new development adds yet another layer of intrigue to the phenomenon for sure. It points to the fact that something is happening both in the oceans and inland as well. If we look at what is happening out at Yellowstone in the last few months, we can clearly see a pattern emerging. Yellowstone is enduring the largest earthquake swarm in recorded history right now. There have been hundreds and thousands of earthquakes per week there for the last 3 months. The land above the caldera is starting to rise from the pressure that is building underneath, and scientists are warning of a possible eruption. If we turn our attention to Earth's other active supervolcano, Campi Flegrei in Italy, we can clearly see that that too is nearing eruption, with scientists saying that an eruption is all but imminent. However, they are expecting a smaller eruption that will release pressure, as opposed to a full-on total eruption that would cause havoc across the globe. This volcano has been rumbling since late July. And finally, we have a forced evacuation of over 50,000 people due to another volcano in Bali that has been growing more and more active since the beginning of August. Now, on their own, each of these events are alarming, but together they begin to take on a different and altogether worse meaning. Looking at these events as part of a larger and more drawn-out event, we can see that earthquakes, volcanoes, and a summer of super hurricanes, accompanied by disappearing water all over the world, can be viewed as a lead-in to an event of even larger proportions. So the question is, can all of this be tied into the passing of Planet X? It certainly would have major effects on our planet if it was close by, no doubt causing earthquakes and volcanic activity to spike when it is near. In addition, just as the moon affects our tides, so would any other massive body that could exert the huge gravitational pull necessary to change the course of our ocean currents or the pull on our tectonic plates, and perhaps even shift the entire planet a few degrees one way or the other. Surely, no storm could have any effect on global weather. In addition, no series of storms could be responsible for all of this either. We are left with two possibilities as to what might be the cause. The first is that these are all completely unrelated events, brought together by coincidence and nothing more. The second, and I believe the most likely, is that there is a common thread among the strings here that ties these events together. Now we can hem and haw and argue about what that common thread might be, but whatever it is, I believe it's there. Universe Today just released an article stating that Planet 9, or 10, cannot hide forever. In this article, they discuss how they are using these types of events to pinpoint the exact location of the wandering planet, which many of us believe is the cause of much of these weather anomalies that we are experiencing. In the last week, we have also seen the discovery of what scientists are calling the most primitive comet ever to be tracked. Scientists have discovered Comet K2, which they believe has been pulled out of the Kuiper Belt. It is a 12-mile wide, icy comet that they believe has been hanging around the Oort cloud since the beginning of our solar system, and is now being pulled towards the sun, though they are not sure if it will swing by and head back out, or be sucked into the sun and perish. So, after a summer of earthquakes, volcanoes, and hurricanes, we begin watching the sky for meteors, comets, and perhaps even Planet X in October, as many folks have pointed to as a possible date for its arrival. If it is close by and does appear, we can be sure we will be in for a wild ride indeed. But what do you think? Do you believe that these are just random coincidences? Do you think it's just a fluke that all of these are happening at the same time? The water disappearing from random places all over the globe because of obscure phenomena that even weathermen haven't seen before? Earthquakes that are bigger and way more frequent than at any time in recorded history? Volcanic activity that has 2 supervolcanoes rumbling and possibly erupting soon? Massive hurricanes, floods, landslides, and sinkholes all appearing at unprecedented rates. Are these all just coincidences? Or do you think that there is something that we aren't being told? Get in the comment section and let us know what you think. We would love to hear your thoughts. Thank you for watching. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment, and we'll see you in the next video. Hello and welcome back to Planet Nibiru. Today, we're going to the first time that they had actually seen this phenomenon. However, a month before Hurricane Irma, there were reports and videos coming out of Brazil and Uruguay showing the exact same phenomenon, but this time, there was no storm to cause it. When asked, local weather scientists take a look at some very interesting stories from around the world that are beginning to paint a pretty mysterious picture of what's going on with the disappearances of large bodies of water globally. As many of you know, October is the time for the annual Draconids meteor shower, so be sure to catch them when you get a chance. If you can't, in the Bahamas. All the water in the bay went missing. The same thing happened in Tampa, Florida a couple of days later. These events were blamed on Hurricane Irma. Though the phenomenon was known, it was rarely witnessed. Career weathermen like Al Roker of Good Morning America remarked that this was view them in your area of the sky. Check out slew.com, where you can view this and all kind of other space events live and free. So let's start at the very beginning of this phenomenon and see if we can understand what's really going on here. Recently, we covered a story about the water being sucked out of the bay